Welcome back to another Bear Era episode. This week we have one of the strangest, coolest, wildest games to talk about in Bears history. The Bears win over the Bengals. We're going to preview the Giants game a little bit as well. We've got Northwatch. Oh, I didn't mute the YouTube, so I was talking in my own ear really loud. Anyways, we'll be talking about the previous week's game, the next week's game, and we're also going to answer your questions. And we heard you last week. We know you want Northwatch, so we're bringing it this week. It'll be in the show, but hook in, drop your questions in the comments. We're happy you're here. But Kieran, I don't even know where to start with the Bengals game because it feels like it was about 3 games in one. The first half was one thing. The third quarter seemed like its own deal, and then the fourth quarter went completely off the rails.
It was the most strange, weird game that I think I've ever watched, to the point of, with about a minute to go in the game, I'm like, why do I watch football? To the end of the game, be like, this is why I watch football. It was oh man, it was like every single emotion. I had so many different people texting me. My phone was like blowing up. And yeah, there's just so much to unpack from the chaos of special. Like, I didn't even sit down and it was 7-0. Like, I literally only turned on the TV and then I just see the guy running. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. It's going to be one of those days. And luckily enough, particular running back and tight end had career days for the Bears, because if they didn't, that could have been... This would be a very different episode of the podcast. Let's just leave it that way.
Yeah, it sure feels like it felt like to me at the end of this game, this was not going to be a fun episode because I am sort of past the era of yelling at the television. I don't do it. I used to do it a lot more. I feel like I've gotten past that. I yelled at the television 3 times. 3 times during the end of that game. I was like, what are you doing? Are you kidding me? And, my wife came down. She's like, you all right? I'm like, I'm okay. Not sure the Bears are okay. But again, I was very much bracing for, oh boy, this is a game they should have won. And then, as everybody saw at the end, Colson Loveland breaks away, scores a TD that he really shouldn't have. But you could say that about multiple TDs on both sides in that game. So really, fantastic sports experience in terms of, like you said, highs and lows. You're going to experience it all during that game. The Bears do come out on top. They are incredibly lucky to have done so. And largely, we have to talk about it. We don't really want to. In fact, I'm going to start off with the good stuff. We'll get to the bad stuff later, which is the defense. A little foreshadowing there. But in terms of what went right for the Bears, because, look, the Bears scored 47 points on the day. Not very often your favorite team scores almost 50 points on an NFL field. It's extremely rare. Biggest difference, obviously, Kyle Monangai. We've been saying it all year. The offensive line has been blocking the run better than DeAndre Swift has been taking advantage of it. And the difference between those two has been pretty stark for most of the year. Swift doesn't get the go in this one. Kyle Monangai steps into that gap and takes advantage of that run blocking, does exactly what we've been calling for, which is, hey, you might only get a hole that looks like you're going to get a yard or two. Get in there, put your pads down, lean, drive, pick up another 2 or 3. And a lot of times with Monangai, because we warned you all last week about the Bengals run defense and how porous it was, sometimes it was an extra 5 or 6 or 7 or 12, and ends up with a obviously career day. He's a rookie, 26 carries, almost 30 carries, which is ridiculous. You almost never see that in the NFL. 176 yards, 6.8 per. That is tremendous production, long of 39, and just ran the ball hard all day. Inside, outside. Outside was still more effective than inside. That's been a theme, but it's not like inside was not effective. It was certainly more effective than we've seen for the rest of the season. And the offense just looked very different from a continuity perspective with Monangai in as the back. I can't believe going forward that it's going to be right back to business as usual with DeAndre Swift. It's like To me, it's like the Carolina situation with Rico Dowdle, right? Chuba Hubbard's a captain. He's well paid. He's been playing incredibly hard and been an engine for that offense. He goes out. Rico Dowdle comes in, goes absolutely supernova, puts up, league leading yardage. And when he comes back, as Dave Canales is the coach, you can't just go back and say, well, yeah, we're just going to pivot back to Chuba, because you have to acknowledge what Rico Dowdle did for your offense and has been doing for your offense. And I think it's the same for Ben Johnson and Kyle Monagai. He has to go. This was clearly different. I know the Bengals run defense isn't great. You pointed out as we were talking pre-show that the Bears still put up more yards versus the Bengals than anybody else have. So it's not just that their defense was bad. The Bears were being effective on offense as well. Caleb played a really good game, not a great game, but we will talk about the stats since week 2 for the Bears. And everybody that keeps bagging on, Caleb's not doing this, or he could have done that, or Ben hasn't done this. Like, Ben's learning, Caleb's learning, but still, the Bears are a top 10 offense in the NFL since week 2 by multiple measures. So the offense had an amazing day. What stuck out to you on that side of the ball?
Look, the obvious is the running game, and when we talk about Kyle Manningham, the one part that I felt bad for him is the one play that he had to come out because he had to strap up his ankle. That Britton Brown gets the touchdown. It's just like, you feel so bad for him. He kind of said it after the game, but like, to go on that, like, you can't go back to DeAndre Swift. Like, we've seen some of the issues that have been pretty glaring, and I think the last couple of weeks have probably faded or clouded the judgment of a lot of fans, because there's been yardage and there's been times Swift has looked good, but he did the same thing last year, where there's certain teams that it was conducive to his style of play and he was able to get yards, but that doesn't mean that he's an effective running back in Ben Johnson's system. We've been saying that all year. That's why even throughout the trade deadline, I was still pretty adamant that, like, if you can get a good deal for somebody, I would still add, and knowing that Swift isn't going to be here after the end of the year, it's one of those where whoever deserves to get the snaps should get them, and that's where we see it with Monangai. Part of that, though, I did want to bring in as well. I want to give a lot of credit to tight ends. I think Colston Loveland had a really good game in terms of not just his pass catching and getting the 2 touchdowns, but he was actively involved in the blocking. You saw, even though Rome he only got targeted 3 times, he was really good in the run game. The obvious one was Theo Benedette. He's probably still pushing that defensive end out to the side. Like, he absolutely mauled him. Darnell Wright Shamar Stewart's been having nightmares of Darnell Wright coming towards him. Like, they were aggressive. They knew that they could beat up on the Bengals on the ground, and they just kept going at it over and over and over again. And that's what I want to see. If you come up against a defense that it might be a week where the passing game is going to be the way forward, cool, attack them where you can. Against the Bengals, you could have just kept running the ball on them and you still would have got the yardage, you still would have gotten scores. And yeah, it's a positive. Again, you hope moving forward that Ben Johnson, and I do believe this, that the staff will be smart enough to know that, like, it just felt a lot different with Kyle in there. I guess you mentioned it, the other kind of tip of the cap has to go to Colston Loveland getting his career day. I know a lot of people have been very critical of him, that obviously because Tyler Warren has been so good early on in the season, but like, Colston was biding his time. You knew this offense with Ben Johnson, at some point he was going to break out, and what a way and what a time to do it, because oh boy did the Bears need him. And that last touchdown that he scored, you've seen him do that throughout his collegiate career, where he catches the ball, gets hit but doesn't go down. And look, the Bengals should have never let that happen, but again, you give credit to Colston. He made the catch, basically got tackled by 2 players and broke through and was able to score. And it's nice to see some of these draft picks come in, make an impact on offense, because you mentioned it. Ben Johnson has the Chicago Bears with a top 10 offense in the National Football League. I can't remember the last time we could say that. And it's not been perfect, like you said. Like, it's
Mhm.
not like Caleb's been throwing it all over the yard, but Caleb has not been bad either. Like, it's so funny because everybody's been critical of him. He's still on course to get over 4,000 yards.
Yeah, I
As
know. The one
like,
mark that everybody has been harping on forever, right? Oh, he never had one, never had one, never had one. He's not good because he hasn't done this and he hasn't done that. And it's like,
still
okay,
there.
I'm just gonna give it to you. Like the Bears offense ranks since week 3. So cutting out the first 2 weeks. And somebody, I just have to bring this up. Somebody on social media sort of clapped back at me and like, why are we not including weeks 1 and 2? And I was like, because things get better, because it's a brand new coaching staff, because nothing stays the same. People grow up. That's why. Anyways, since week 3, starting in week 3, sack rate, 5th best. Turnovers per play rate, 1st. That means lowest. Success rate, 13th. Overall, 3rd in rushing, even with all the struggles of the rush offense. Explosive play rate, 2nd in the National Football League. Yards per play, 4th. EPA per play, 7th. EPA per rush, 3rd. EPA per dropback, 8th. I I didn't put out, outside of success rate, which was combined, that was 13th, just outside of the top 10. Every other number there was a single digit. That is a top 10 offense, no matter how you look at it, no matter how you slice it. This isn't cherry picking. This is top to bottom. Ben Johnson has done the impossible. He has taken the Chicago Bears, who have been moribund on offense overall. Yes, there were good years. Nagy's first year was good. You look at specific sections of when the Bears were good. They have not been good overall on offense for a long time. They have not been reliable on offense for a long time. They have not scored 47 points, or anywhere near in quite a bit. And Ben Johnson's done all of that in 9 weeks, 8 games. It's super impressive, and it hasn't been perfect. The running game hasn't been great. Caleb's had things that he could improve on for sure. Ben's had things that he could improve on. He's said as much. Hey, I need to make better play calls there. Hey, I need to take better advantage there. And still, it's a top 10 offense in Chicago, folks. I want to get out the pots and the spoons and just be like, pay attention. This is what everybody wanted. It's literally happening. And people are still like, and I think it's just, I don't know. I'll ask your opinion on this. I think everybody is just so jaded. Everybody is just so inert. Everybody's just so used to everything going wrong on offense forever that they don't even know what good looks like. So good happens in front of them and they just go, well, it's not good enough.
Mm-hmm. To me, it's, and I've said this like on different weeks, and I don't know if it's just like people wanting like the clicks on social media and all the engagements and stuff.
Sure.
But when I look at some of the comments, I'm like, do you not watch the rest of the NFL?
Yeah,
Like,
apparently not.
You see, like, you can watch, like, case in point, watch the Bills against the Chiefs, right? There was multiple plays where Patrick Mahomes made big mistakes, where it was reasons why they didn't win that football game. That doesn't mean that it's a poor performance. It means that in a particular play, he didn't make the easy option that he could have made. And it's the same. You see this all throughout the league. Like, one week you'll see Justin Herbert be unbelievable. The next week you'll see a couple of boneheaded plays, because that's what happens, because defenses get paid too. And
That's right.
you're gonna see it. Like, if you wanna, it's almost like, and I actually do think this is the key point of this. You see it in the media, you see it with fans. It's like, whatever you thought about a certain player coming out of the draft, that's what you're going to stick to. And it doesn't matter what they do unless they've been like undeniably the best quarterback in football, right? Like,
Yeah.
you're going to see guys constantly going at them, because like, even to a point, like when I look at guys commenting on like CJ Stroud and things like that, how he was so good in his rookie year, it's actually pretty normal for that to go down. It's like, people who were so overly or over the top on Jaden Daniels last year can't take the fact that he hasn't seen the field well when he's been playing this year, and you see guys like Kurt Warner come out and say like this is what's happening, and he's struggled in his second year, but it's people that went kind of out on a limb last year say he's this superstar, but like yeah, you can look at a superstar really early on, and then you can struggle. Just like Drake May looks really good right now. It could be in 5 weeks' time or 6 weeks' time, he could have a game where he has 3 interceptions and the Patriots lose. But like this is what happens. Like we say it all the time here. Development isn't linear. Like
Yep.
you'll see Caleb in games that maybe you're expecting later on in the year that he doesn't play very well and could have 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. And then there's a game that you'd expect him to be able to throw the ball a bunch, but the defense has his number and they end up running the ball more. It's the reality. Caleb is still getting used to this new system. He's actually trying to fix the way he plays because he's been hero ball Caleb for pretty much his entire professional career. And that's not what Ben Johnson wants him to do. He wants him to play in structure, but when things break down, to be able to do what he wants in terms of getting out of the pocket and making those plays. But for the most part, Caleb is playing in structure and he's doing a pretty decent job at it. He's going to make mistakes because it's not his natural instinct, because he has to undo 5 or 6 years of the opposite. And you're not going to do that in 9 weeks or 9 games. It's going to take much longer. You probably won't see what Ben really wants to see until next year. But listen to the head coach that we all loved and wanted to bring in here. He's saying that Caleb is looking more like the quarterback that I want in my offense. This is coming from the head coach. He doesn't have to say that. He can say something else. But he's talking about, he can say that Caleb played well, blah, blah, but he mentioned that this is the type of quarterback we want for the offense. This is what we've been teaching Caleb. And Caleb's starting to get to grips with it. You're seeing him at certain points of the game be more comfortable. Will it be perfect? No. But as a fan, what you should look at is there's positives here that you can see clear growth. And really, where you want Caleb firing on all cylinders isn't really going to be this year, because newsflash, this team is probably not going to the playoffs. They might sneak in if they win some games, but the reality is you should be gearing up for next year, where you really should have a roster good enough to be able to compete for it. And that's when you want Caleb firing and knowing absolutely everything about this offense. Right now, it's he's learning it. He's having success while he's learning, and that's positive. And that's what you need to ask for. This team is doing enough right now to win games. They're not doing it in a nice way, but what I liked about it, at least, you can see that if the special teams are garbage, the offense is good enough to help you win. And that's, Caleb mentioned it, Rome mentioned it. That was the first time we've seen a Bears offense be the reason they've won a football game. And it was nice to see, because you're going to need different ways to win. We've seen it previous this year where defense has gotten multiple takeaways and they're the reason you win a football game. Against the Bengals, it was all on Caleb. It was all on Colston. It was all on Kyle. And that's good to see, because these are young pieces of the offense moving forward.
Yeah, and back to Colston Loveland for 1 second before we move to the not so happy topic of the defense.
Yeah.
Ben's been saying the same thing about Colston, right? And yes, it's his first overall top pick as a head coach. So you would expect him to say that. But he has said things throughout like, yeah, we haven't seen the total package yet. We haven't seen the game, the full game that we've wanted from Colston. He's been out injured, but he's been making progress. He is absolutely the right choice. And you mentioned it. It's comparison. Same with Caleb and Drake May. Drake May goes off. Oh, Caleb's terrible. No, it's not either or, folks. There's definitely a world, and we're living in it, where they can both be good. And it's the same with Colston and Tyler Warren. And even Ben has said, yep. And not just said, right? Because coach speak is one thing and coach do is another. And if you go back to weeks before this one, in high leverage situations, the few catches that Colston had, Ben was going to him with confidence in late game situations where they needed a down. Like he'd done it 2 or 3 times already this year for the rookie. And he was right. All those things hadn't come together. They came together against the Bengals to the tune of 6 catches, 118 yards, 19.7 per, and of course the 2 touchdowns, including the last one, which I don't think could have been much more dramatic. That was about as turnkey as you get, going from I can't believe we lost this game to I think we might win this game in 3 seconds. So really outstanding day by the offense. As you said, it's been a long time in Chicago since we've seen an offense pull a team through, just purely when the other parts of the team didn't pull through. The opening kickoff return, it's not good. Like Richard Hightower's got work to do. He knows it. But it's not the end of the world either. It happened on the very first play of the game. It gives you the entire amount of the game to make it up. It's not something that happens with 30 seconds left where you can't recover. Is it great? No. Is it a nail in the coffin? No, it's not that either. The true nail in the coffin, or what should have been the nail in the Bears' coffin that they narrowly escaped, was the defense. If your offense scores 47 points and you almost lose, your defense is having a very, very, very bad day. And they did. They did it over and over again. We saw, again, fits and starts, but we didn't see any kind of consistency, and especially when you need it down the stretch, late third, pretty much the entire fourth quarter, this defense was tissue paper soft. They played awful, awful football. They made mistakes. It almost seemed like whatever the DC called, you probably should have run the opposite and you would have done better, because it seemed like when he was running man, he should have been running zone. When he pressed, he should have been sitting back. When he was sitting back, he should have pressed. It just felt like every wrong decision stacking on top of every previous wrong decision. And the end result was, holy cow, like the Bengals are coming back in this one. Are you serious? Are we doing this? And it was clearly a defensive collapse. I sent out several texts in late third, early fourth with like DA in complete collapse mode. There's no other way to characterize that defensive showing. This wasn't the refs. This wasn't bad calls. This wasn't penalties. This was the defense playing extremely poorly. Yes, I know there are injuries. I am well aware that some of the very best players, in fact, I think the best player that you have on defense, has not played for most of the season. The second best player you have on defense hasn't played a bunch of games either and is currently on IR. The top pass rusher that you brought in has been okay in fits and starts, but has not taken over games. Javon Dexter had a beautiful first 4 or 5 games. Looked like he was ascending and absolutely completely there. He's fallen off a little bit. Again, did he make some plays in this game? He did. He had his flashes. Did the sum total of any of those parts come together? No. And if, you said it before the pod started. If you don't have pass rush and you don't have coverage, you're in for some very long days on defense. You're going to get shredded by NFL offenses. And case in point, Joe Flacco, yes, the immortal, ageless, what do we say about Joe Flacco? 470 yards, 4 touchdowns. Like that's, you can't have that from, again, the Bengals offense. We're not talking about the Seahawks offense. We're not talking about the Eagles offense. We're talking about the Bengals offense, which has not been great for most of the year, coming out and throwing for almost 500 yards. That is the best indication of a complete defensive collapse. And DA's got a lot of work to do. Like he's not getting a lot of guys back soon. He might get Kyler and Jalen back towards the end of the year, but it's not going to be next week. It's not going to be the week after that. So he's got to come up with some solutions. And I know a lot of us, all of us, were looking for some possible option at the trade deadline. It's very hard. It's very expensive, quite frankly, to get a top corner. They weren't going to give up 2 first-round picks to go get Sauce. Could you have brought in some of their help? Sure, we could talk about that. But this isn't about help. This is about playing better with what you have, because schematically, it didn't work out. Like, it did not work out. You need to do better.
Yeah, there's no excuses. You can give up yards, you can give up points, but it's the manner and how you gave up the yards and the points. You made it too easy on the Bengals. Like, I know the Bears had a pick 6 and it gets brought back and all that ensues, but like there was about a minute and 20 or 30 seconds when the Bengals score the touchdown to go for them to be still like you're still looking they're gonna have to score another touchdown to be able to go ahead, but they do it so easily, and you're like, if you're a defense and you know that you are, even if you didn't get that pick six, you just have to make one stop, and that's it. You make one stop, and nobody is really talking about this anymore because it appears from the scoreline that the Bears had an easier game than they actually did, because then you look like you're up by a load and you're not having to worry. But the problem is the defense gave it away, and the defense was awful. Um, I'm not going to excuse the special teams because they were just as bad. The obviously the first kick, the kick return, it happens. We see it across the National Football League, especially now because there's more space for these guys to get the ball. But you gave up 297 yards in kick return game. That's atrocious. Cairo Santos, I know it says he missed one. He missed two kicks because one was luckily brought back. I had no faith that if Colston Loveland doesn't score that touchdown and gets tackled, that Cairo's going to make that kick because of the way that special teams has been going. The other thing is Daniel Hardy. Play attention to the ball. Don't pay attention to the man when all you need is you get that ball and the game is over.
Correct.
And that is the problem. And that is a coaching issue as well on special teams, that it's mentality. It's like you shouldn't just be there to hit your guy. Obviously, if the ball's not coming to you, you make sure that you have your guy. But the minute you see that ball is in your vicinity, that's your first option, is make sure we get the ball. And there was too many mistakes on special teams, too many mistakes on defense. And ultimately, if you do that in 99% of games, you don't have a hope of winning. Luckily, the Bears' offense were on it. They were able to run on the Bengals. They were able to pass on the Bengals. And honestly, it seemed like the Bears could have scored on almost every single possession that they had on offense, but so were the Bengals. And that was the way that game kind of happened. But you need to make it easier on yourself. Like, you can't do that to your offense when your offense is scoring at will and they put up 47 points. If you put up 47 points, you should be winning a game by 20. You shouldn't have to score with, like, what was it, like 40 something seconds left on the clock, and then you leave them with, I think by the time the Bengals got it, there was like 13 seconds left or something like that. And I don't know about most people, but when I saw that, I'm like, oh no, did we give them time? Like, it was the PTSD of a Bears fan. But again, it's just, there's too many things that went wrong in that game that I don't think you can just say it's down to not having the quality players, because there's enough money invested in that defensive line. There's still good enough players. Like, Tyreek Stevenson is still a second round pick, right? Like, he's played all year. Nashawn Wright, look, he is what he is, but he's serviceable, but he got beat a couple of times where he shouldn't have gotten beat. I'll give credit to CJ Gardner-Johnson for basically having two practices. He actually looked better than most of the guys in the secondary. So, like, I will give him credit. He brought a little bit there. I think Tremaine Edmonds was horrific. He was invisible for the most part of that game. Defensive line, I think the problem there, and people remember maybe it was a series or two where they got some pressure, but like up until Austin Booker and Montez Sweat sacked Joe Flacco, they got no pressure through basically 3/4 of that game. And you're paying that defensive line over $50 million this year. It's not good enough. It needs to be better. Obviously, Dio goes out and they brought somebody in, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But again, like, nobody's coming down here to save you. Like, this is coming from inside. You have to be able to have a better performance level. And if you don't, you will get killed by some of the teams that are coming up on your schedule. Flat out. Like, you you need to just perform better on defense. You can't have it that your offense is going to score 40 points a game, because that's not sustainable. Like, you have to be able to give some slack to the offense. Like, they are not going to be able to score touchdowns every single time they touch the ball. Like, it's just not going to happen. So it's something that the coaches need to look at. They need to have a reaction, like they had a reaction after they got trounced by the Lions on defense. They need to make sure that they do that, and they actually they have to stop it from happening. And yeah, it's very disappointing, because that should have been a game that Bears fans should have been rejoicing at the end of it, rather than being pissed off about what we just saw on defense. And I've heard from a lot of people after that game that they were just so annoyed at what the defense put up, that like, we should have been celebrating that our offense put up 47 points.
Yeah, and very few people were. I was just kind of exhausted myself, but a lot of that came from going, what are you doing on defense? And to your point, we're going to learn a lot about the coaching staff, because they have to fix it. If you come out every week and say, oh, we had 10 more penalties this week, we can't have penalties next week, and you come out and you have 10 more after that, like, you didn't do anything to fix it. And I know that Ben is not satisfied with what's going on the defense right now, regardless of everything else. Like, I understand guys are out, but there's still a lot of guys that are talented on the defense, and they're not playing up to the level. So they do have to get it fixed. They cannot come out next week and give up another 40 and come out the next week and give up 38. Like, you can't just keep hoping that your offense boat races them, to your point, because that's not going to happen. And really, it just puts the onus on the other team to have a defense good enough to get 1 or 2 stops, because if you get 1 or 2 stops, you can't score more than 40 plus on 7 or 8 possessions. The average number of possessions in an NFL game is about 9.5, 9.8. Now, some of those are just going to be, 3 and outs. Some of them are going to be punts. You're not going to score on every one of them. And even if you do score on most of the rest of them, you're not going to score touchdowns. So if their defense comes out and gets a stop, you're finished. That's what you're telling me. Your defense is bad enough that if the other team gets 1 solid stop when they need it, you're done. I can't accept that. That's not good enough. I know Ben knows it's not good enough, and it will have to be their focus, because obviously the offense is clicking along. It didn't have everybody either. It was missing people with injuries too, and it still scored 47. So defense, buck up, do what you need to do. So with that, we heard you last week. We know that you love Northwatch. I let all the guys that make Northwatch for us know that. They were, I would say, suitably psyched about that. They were excited that everybody's been resonating to that. And of course, we can't skip Mike on the mic just because we're doing live streams. So we're going to queue up Northwatch and Mike on the mic right in a row here, and then we will talk about Giants after that.
I guess just before we get into it, I did notice in the chat from Paul Spencer, he put in a super chat there just saying, love the live streams. I know it's tough with the international scheduling, but I'll take more of Bear Era whenever I can get it. There will be more. Don't worry about the live streams. I will be up at whatever time I need to be to make sure you guys get the content that you want. It helps when the Bears play well, because we don't feel quite as tired. So yeah, look, it'll happen. We do appreciate any of the super chats that do come in, and we will read them out on the screen. And with that being said, we'll go Northwatch. EJ, I'm gonna let you pick. Do you want Packers, Lions, or Vikings first?
Oh, I couldn't wait this week to listen to Northwatch, because we had 2 of the teams play each other, and we had the Packers getting beat by the Panthers at home. That is only Matt LaFleur's 13th loss ever at Lambeau. He became the Packers head coach in 2019. Beating the Packers in Lambeau is a very tough thing to do, and the Panthers just did it. So I think I'll save that little delicious piece for last. Okay. I'll let you pick either Vikings or Lions, because we're going to hear both sides of that game.
Let's go Vikings, because they won that game. I think
fair enough,
right? Yes, they won.
They did win. Yes.
I was like, did I get that right?
Yep.
Okay, here's Arif Hassan.
This is Arif with wildleft.football for Northwatch with your Vikings update. They won against the Lions, who were favored by 9.5 points. They won by 3, were in control of most of that game, and it gives us a lot of optimism for the young quarterback, J.J. McCarthy. Just his third start, the first one coming back from his high ankle sprain injury. I think the rumors about his soft benching are going to be put to rest, but I don't want to overstate his performance. It was fine. He had a bunch of really great moments, made a bunch of mistakes, nearly threw one more pick than he actually did. A lot to work on there, but it's always nice to have something to work on after a win rather than a loss. And I'm sure Bears fans are happy to see the Lions taken down a notch. The Vikings were able to do it in part not just from what they did on offense with J.J. McCarthy, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison having a great game, but also what they were able to do on defense. One of the best defensive performances that they put all season, given who their opponent is. But I am a little bit worried about what's going to happen next week against a more mobile quarterback. That defense, which is now closer to fully healthy than it ever has been with the return of Andrew Van Ginkel. They still have Blake Cashman and Harrison Smith. They've struggled against mobile quarterbacks. You look at their games against Jalen Hurts and Justin Herbert, you see it's a bit of a different challenge than Jared Goff, who, though a talented quarterback, presents a different kind of obstacle than Lamar Jackson does. So we'll see how that defense does against a quarterback that's got a little bit more ability to scramble out of the pocket and take advantage of how the Vikings approach rush lanes and their blitzes. But for now, they're 500. That ostensibly puts them in some sort of playoff race. That's good news. It's a lot better than it was for the last 2 weeks. So, hey, the Vikings are back, I guess.
Very, very nice. Very nice. Obviously, it's always good when the Lions lose. So let's go straight into that one. Let's see what we heard from the other side of the coin, where probably a certain Nick was expecting to have a very positive video this week, but didn't end up happening. So here we go.
Tom Werner here with your weekly Lions update. Not a great update for the Lions today. After this is often is the case in the NFL, right? Lions looked to be feeling sky high going into their bye week a couple weeks ago after beating a red hot Tampa team at home. Go on bye, come out of the bye, and just look like a group that hasn't played in a month and a half. This is exactly how the game against the Commanders and the playoffs went last year after they had that first round bye. I think there might be something going on there to that, possibly also the fact that the Lions did not get good performances from many of their young guys on Sunday. Tate Ratledge and Christian Mahogany struggled inside. Mahogany ended up getting hurt, and he's going to be out for a good while, which is not good either. Taylor Decker also got dinged up in this game. Jared Goff was off in this game. Defense was sort of like sloppy at times in this game, as I felt like they gave J.J. McCarthy way too many comfortable situations to work from, and JJ's a talented kid, so he was able to make him pay. And lo and behold, Minnesota's season is back up off the mat, and the Lions now have to go back to the drawing board. I thought this was a huge wasted opportunity for Detroit, one that they could have really done some damage to Minnesota while also elevating themselves possibly over Green Bay with their loss as well. But it is what it is. That's how the NFL works. The note here, though, I think, is that the NFC North, I think, is outstanding. I think all four teams right now are headed in, if we look at their long-term directions for all four teams, Lions, Bears, Vikings, and Packers, I think all of them are headed exactly where they should be. And I think it's making for good games. It's making for competitive battles most of the times these teams play. So I think that's pretty cool. And I think that's only going to continue as the season wears on. So we'll talk to you next week.
Very nice.
Pretty level for a disappointing loss to the Vikings team that they really thought they were going to beat. Again, whenever you get I'm just going to say rookie for JJ McCarthy, who from now on is known as JJM because it's just way easier when there's two JJs on that team. But JJM in his third start ever coming out against a very good Lions team and taking it to him even with the mistakes that Arif mentioned. I think that's pretty fair by Nick to come out and say, yeah, Lions might have some issues here. Definitely didn't play as well as they could have. And nice little note at the end there, very Northwatch-esque note to say, hey, the entire NFC North is trending upwards right now. And I think he's correct.
Except for our last team here who lost to the measly Panthers. So let's see what Mr. Tom Grossi had to say.
Well, that sucked. The Green Bay Packers lost to the Carolina Panthers, and the Bears somehow got a win. The Vikings got a win. but at least the Lions lost, so that definitely helps. Listen, yeah, that was pretty darn ugly. The Packers offense couldn't get anything going. They lose Tucker Kraft for the season, which is a huge blow to this squad. The defense had no pass rush. Micah Parsons had 0 pressures, and you got to give a ton of credit to the Panthers, man. Like, they deserved it. They came in with a game plan. They were able to block. Rico Dowdle ran all over us. And yeah, there's some concern for this Green Bay Packers team. The good news is, at least we don't have a tough game on Monday night, like against the defending Super Bowl champs, because that would be awful. But seriously, for the Packers, it's just about consistency, and this has been something that's been plaguing them all year. This is only their second loss, which now every single team in the NFL has, and while that may sound like cope, the fact that the Packers are still number 1 in the NFC North does give me at least a little bit of relief. However, they're going to need to start getting things together if they want to make this playoff push as we get closer and closer to January. But as of right now, yes, I am a sad Packers fan this week. They got to get things together, and considering they've been playing really well against good teams and bad against bad teams, maybe they'll show up against the Philadelphia Eagles.
I do love me some Tom Grassi. In victory, in defeat, I could listen to Tom all day. I would rather listen to him in defeat when he's talking about the Packers, just to be clear, but Tom's great, and all of our Northwatch contributors are awesome to do it for us every single week and keep you all up to date on what's going on around the division, so that you don't have to watch, green and gold more than you would like to.
Yeah, I like the 45-second snippets of Tom Grassi not being happy about the Packers not winning.
Yeah.
I just hope that we get another video like that next Tuesday or Wednesday. That's all I want to see. So
that'd be great.
That would be nice. So come on, Eagles. Let's get another win. Anyway, with that being said, let's bring it back around to the Bears, because our producer, who is in the chat, and he's been
such a
going
champ.
hell for leather with you guys in the chat, so we do appreciate him, and he has his weekly video, Mike on the Mic, and I'll play that now.
What is up, EJ and Karen? And thank you, Bears fans, for joining us on this edition of Mike on the Mic here on the Bear Era podcast. I'm your host, Mike Mercado. Thank you so much for making us a part of your week. And as much fun as we had this past Halloween weekend, trick-or-treating, seeing all the costumes, watching the scary movies, nothing was better than watching the Chicago Bears pull a victory out from the hat and beating the Cincinnati Bengals in Cincinnati. And we got to see Colston Loveland be a hero. We got to see Caleb Williams put up major superstar points on the board. Now, after that exciting victory against the Cincinnati Bengals on Halloween weekend, the conversation around Bears Nation hasn't just been about the performance of Caleb Williams or the breakout performance of Colston Loveland. It has been about the defense, and more importantly, the defensive line. We saw that the rumors were going and swirling about the Chicago Bears being in many conversations about bringing in help, to bring in depth, to try to get pressure on the QB. Now, we did see something like that as they brought in Joe Tryon-Shoyinka from the Cleveland Browns. Now, this is more of a depth move, but it is an indicator on something that we haven't really focused on here on Mike and the Mic, but has been a thing of concern or a thing of conversation for Chicago Bears fans. And that is the Chicago Bears' lack of pressure. Now, the New York Giants have allowed pressure on the QB 36.7% of the time and have allowed 27 sacks. So in this game, where the Chicago Bears are looking to start another winning streak, looking to take advantage of a rookie quarterback, a team that is missing major pieces, the best way to do that is to disrupt the young quarterback. This is a chance for somebody like Montez Sweat, who we've seen have some big performances or big-time moments in Bears wins, really take over a game. Now, while saying all that, Dennis Allen's defense has found a way to take the ball away from the offense. Now it's time to see Dennis Allen ramp up this Bears defense. Blitz, create pressure, create disguises that make it a long day for Jaxson Dart. I want the Chicago Bears defensive line to have their big game this week. 6 sacks, pressure all day, fumbles, fumble recoveries, stopping the run on the line. We are looking for that performance. We are looking for Caleb Williams and this offense to just kind of cruise, to have a good game, to maintain their momentum. Because on week 10, Bears Giants, I'm looking for an old school Bears defensive win. Now, hopefully the Bears can walk away with back-to-back victories, start their next winning streak, and continue on with the good times. Thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Mike on the Mic here on the Bear Era Podcast. Enjoy Bears versus Giants. Enjoy the entire Week 10 slate. Now back to EJ and Kieran.
Mike,
Oh,
did you know somebody was in your bedroom?
Oh man, that kind of goes with the Halloween theme, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But if we look forward to the Giants and what Mike was talking about being banged up, the Bears are not the only one this time of year. The entire NFL is suffering through attrition, some worse than others for sure. Giants, it's pretty bad. A lot of questionable marks on their offense if you're looking at it. I don't know, Kieran, how quick are you feeling? I think you might be able to play wide receiver for them this week because obviously Neighbors is on IR, but Bo Collins is also questionable. So they are down to generally folks that you don't know the name of because Bryce Ford Wheaton's on IR, Daquan Felton's on IR. You've got questionable guys. Theo Johnson was contributing for them earlier at the tight end spot. He's questionable as well. So we got Bellinger. Fedoni's questionable. Like you go down, John Michael Schmitz is questionable. One of the tackles is questionable. You go to the defense, Javon Holland, Cordell Flott, Paulson Adebo, all guys in their secondary, all questionable. Will some of these guys play? For sure. They do every week. But right now, as you look at it, this is not a healthy, well-oiled machine that is coming, into the game with the Bears looking unstoppable. This is a shaky team with a coach on a hotter and hotter seat who looked like he had it solved when he had that very brief time where he had his rookie quarterback playing very well. Jaxson Dart has had, I would say, by all accounts, a very good rookie season. Cam Scatabo was adding an element they really needed, and it looked like they were going to be able to make some noise. Not necessarily win their division, but be competitive in a way that they really needed to be for their coach. And injuries have caught up with them, and they don't have a ton of firepower, and it's not looking good. It's starting to be shaky. If the Bears come in and pound them, look, the New York media market is relentless, and the heat will go up. Like it has to. It's already sort of simmering, and it could get to a boil pretty quickly. I don't think they will do anything about moving on from a coach, even if the Bears absolutely shellac them. It's going to take a few more of those, but make no mistake, the Giants leadership are looking at this game to have maybe not a win, but again, I would say a substantial showing that looks competent and makes it a close game, keeps the Giants in it until at least the second half. I know that sounds like faint praise, but it's kind of you are where you are at this point in terms of how they've lost. And they are starting a rookie quarterback. I think Jaxson Dart's going to be good. Again, a little bit like Nick said, out into the future. If you're looking at where the Giants are going to be a couple of years from now, I feel okay about their prospects right now, which is where they have to play the Bears. I don't like the look of their team, their health, their overall trajectory. Could they beat the Bears? They certainly could, especially if the Bears just decide to play no defense like they did last week. But if the Bears come in and are solid on defense and even just solid on offense, I would say maybe even half the points they scored last week would be enough to beat the Giants if they play consistently. Don't give up special teams gaffes. Don't turn the ball over a lot. Just a kind of middle of the road game should be enough to beat this particular Giants team in the shape it's in. But we'll see. The NFL serves up at least 2 or 3 games every week that you're like, what? Nobody had the Panthers over the Packers. I didn't see that anywhere, and they beat them. So it does happen.
Yeah, for me, keep it simple on defense. Keep everything in front of you. When 2 of the main options that they'll have available, a wide receiver, Wan'Dale Robinson and Jalen Hyatt, who have... Look, Wan'Dale Robinson has worse hands than the Carolina Panthers corner that dropped the Jordan Love obvious interception. I feel bad for Jaxson Dart because some of the throws he's making and receivers just like dropping. If you think Rome Odunze has had problems with the drops, like these Giants receivers, there's at least like 7 or 8 every single week. And I agree with you. I think Jaxson Dart has played really, really good football. Like, you compare what Jaxson Dart has done to what like Cam Ward has done, and like I know people will say, oh, but the Tennessee Titans, yeah, but like the offense that Jaxson Dart has been in, like there's not a lot there. There really isn't. Like that's why everybody was like very, very excited about Cam Scadaboo, because that was a dimension that it was easing the pressure on Dart. But now that he's gone, like Tyrone Tracy is fine. He's a good, serviceable running back, but he's not going to be the reason that you lose a game. So personally, I think this will come down to if the Bears can slow down the Giants' pass rush, if they can run the football, there's been teams that have been able to pass on the Giants. If you can slow them down, those quick passes, get the running game going, if you can rack up some points early, like I've said this the last couple of weeks, if you can score early touchdowns and you force the Giants to have to like push the ball down the field, that's when Jaxson Dart will make mistakes, because he's a rookie and he's passing to guys that are suboptimal. So that's where you can take advantage. Like, for as bad as the defense has been, they have still been opportunistic when they have the opportunity to take the ball away. And I think that they can do it against the Giants. It is one of those games that defensively you just have to be average. If you're average against the Giants, you'll win this football game. If the defense is terrible and the special teams plays bad again, who's to say? Because I don't think the Bears offense will score 40 points against the Giants defense.
No.
I think the Bears offense might get to 30. You might get to 30, which look, I still think that Giants defense is pretty good in terms of looking at who's available there if some of those guys you mentioned do play. But again, your defense needs to perform better. If the defense moves back to where they were a couple of weeks ago, you go into this game feeling pretty confident. After what we saw last week, I don't think you can go in being like, oh, the Bears are definitely going to win, because I don't know what's going to show up on defense. If the defense that we saw in the previous 4 or 5 weeks shows up from after the Lions game to the Bengals, even the one against the Ravens where it wasn't perfect, but if that shows up, the Bears win this football game. If the defense again that played the Lions or played the Bengals shows up, the Giants will probably win. And that's where it's really tipping right now, where this is a game that the quality that the Bears have on their roster is better than the Giants. You should win this football game. But again, the deviation,
Will you?
the deviation on this defense of how bad it can be is such a difference. It's such a difference maker that if they perform that level again, it's simple. You won't win. And that's what needs to get fixed. Do I think it gets fixed? Yes, because we saw it before when they had an embarrassing loss against the Lions and how they performed. The defense came out the next week and everybody was locked in and they played really good football. I think they're going to have to do that again this week. If they do that this week, I think the Bears will win. They'll probably win by 7 to 10 points if that's the case. If they don't do that, then you're probably looking at the opposite end. So I think all Bears fans, if you go into that game, if early on you see the defense is hustling and is swarming to the football, feel confident during that game. If we're seeing similar stories to what we saw against the Bengals, it could be a long day on Sunday.
Yeah, the one place that could turn it for the Giants is their defensive line. It is incredibly talented. It is very healthy right now, or mostly healthy. Again, Brian Burns got dinged up a little bit, but you've got Dexter Lawrence, you've got Brian Burns, you've got Abdul Carter backing him up, you've got Kayvon Thibodeau, who's been playing better, not having to be the guy. They can bring a lot of firepower in the pass rush, and if the offensive line has breakdowns early, Caleb gets hit a bunch early, the offense will change, and that's going to shorten it up and protect that secondary that's all dinged up for the Giants. If they get any amount of time or Caleb flashes his sort of trademark escapability from that front, look out. If you're talking about 3.5 to 4.5 seconds deep in the play, that secondary does not right now look like it's going to be able to cover. And some of the Bears wide receivers are going to come wide open, and we know Caleb can hit them. And if that happens, it could get ugly pretty quick. But their defensive line could keep them in it. It's going to take a lot of discipline, and it's going to take a bunch of good wins. but they've got the horses to do it on that defensive line. It's the one place where they really could turn this game and make it hard for the Bears to score points on offense. So we'll see how it plays out, but we're coming up on just about an hour. We're going to hang out for probably about an hour and 15 minutes. So we're going to dig back through the chat, find some of our favorite questions. Feel free to put a few more in and see if we can't, pay it off that you spent this hour with us, answer some of your questions about the Bears, whether it's about aftermath of the Bengals or heading into the Giants game or even future Bears seasons. You've seen any that tip your cap there, Kieran?
Let's see. Is there?
Oh, I did see this one. This is more of just a shout out, but Tapped In says, "What's up, guys? Joining late, but shout out to Kyle Monangai and the NFLSE crew." That's the NFL Stock Exchange crew. My buddies Trevor and Connor. Connor was a huge Monangai fan. Again, he's in the New York market. He is a commentator for the Jets professionally and is right there near Rutgers, and loved Kyle Monangai. So yeah, he's celebrating a little bit. Going to be doing some collaborations with them in the off season. Talk to those guys quite a bit. And yeah, shout out to them for the early heads up, but Monangai for paying it off behind the Bears offensive line made a huge difference for Chicago on Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing on Monangai got his Angry Runs award from Kyle Brandt today. It was so that was fun. I think who was the last Bear that won that from Kyle Brandt? I think it was it Chase Claypool? I remember it was someone that just got traded.
It was the backup running back. I have the shirt actually. Homage does the shirt for Angry Runs, and they sent me the shirt. So I have that one upstairs. Yeah, I haven't worn it in a bit because he hasn't been a Bear in 2 years, but that's how it goes. How's the Giants? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. There was one question that we had over on Blue Sky prior to the podcast coming out. And I got a question for you. After the win this week, how many more wins do you think that the Bears will get for the rest of the year?
Ooh, it's a good question. I like that one. Let me back up and pull up schedule. Gonna go Bears. And all right, schedule. So we got the Giants game. I think that's definitely possibly one win. Vikings. It's at the Vikings for one. Brian Flores had a masterclass against the Lions. I spent some time on Bootleg this week talking about what Brian Flores did. It was impressive as a defensive play caller, even for Brian, who is one of the better defensive play callers in the NFL. He had himself a day. So that one's more of a push for me. Steelers. I feel like the Steelers are kind of what Tom said about the Packers. They're really inconsistent. They can come out and play pretty well, but they can also be extremely flat. And their defense, this is not a familiar foothold for Steelers fans, has been bad this year. The offense has been pulling that team through when it's won, and the defense has been letting them down pretty catastrophically. Not quite as bad as the Bears last week, but in the 2 weeks prior, the Steelers defense had given up over 600 yards passing, 7 touchdowns, and created no interceptions. So their defense is struggling quite a bit. I would give the Bears a nod in that one. That is the Steelers coming to Soldier Field. Eagles, I'm going to give that one to the Eagles. Packers, by then, again, we'll see who's back from injury. That's a month from now. That's 5 weeks from now. It's possible Kyler Gordon could be back from IR. He changes the secondary. We've seen him in his return change both the running and the passing stats pretty darn quickly. Could be even right now as it sits, I'd give it to the Packers, but not by much. That is not a slam dunk game. And if the Bears get a few players back, I think that one moves back to a push for me. Browns, that's a win for sure. A week later, go back against the Packers again. That is such a tough thing to do in the NFL. To play a team twice in 3 weeks, whether it's like this, where it's division games in season, or if you play somebody right at the end of the season to get into the playoffs and then you play them immediately in the playoffs, like within a couple of weeks, it is very difficult. You know everything about tendency, about the personnel. It doesn't change very much in 2 weeks. They are so the same that, especially if it turns out to be your third game against that team in a season. It is very hard to hide anything from them. You just have to out execute. So both of those games are kind of going to be the same rating for me. If it's right now a slight lean to the Packers in both, again, with a return to health for the Bears, maybe Jalen's back by that second Packers game. If that's the case, that game's definitely a push for me. But they're going to be really close, and it's going to be kind of health dependent. I think these teams are much closer than they have been in quite a while for that rivalry. 49ers have been playing extremely well. They're pretty sneaky. Again, they have to stay healthy. Boy, that's a tough one. It feels like a coin flip to me, but I would lean Bears, especially with another month and a half under Ben Johnson sort of polishing up this offense. By then, I feel like they should probably take that game, given where the 49ers are with total health. And then they end up the season versus the Lions at Soldier Field. Right now, I'm going to give that one to the Lions still. Like, I still think Dan Campbell and the Lions, I thought they were going to take a step back losing both coordinators. They really haven't for the most part.
Yeah, I'm going to be probably a bit conservative. I think that the Bears will win these next 2 weeks. I think they'll beat the Giants and they'll beat the Vikings. But then I think they go on a 3-game losing streak to the Steelers, the Eagles, and the Packers. But this is where I think it changes a little bit. I think the Bears will beat the Browns, like you said. That game is an interesting one for the Packers because they play against the Broncos that day. I would rather be the Bears in between those two Packers games and playing the Browns versus having to play against the Broncos, who will be fighting for their playoff lives. So that's where I do think that when the Packers come to Soldier Field on December 20th, I think the Bears will win that game. I don't think that the Bears will then beat the 49ers or the Lions. So I have them winning 1, 2, 3, 4 more games this year. So pretty much where I thought they would be at about 9 wins.
Yeah, I think I'll give them 5. I think I'll give them 10 for the season. They're 5. They've won 5 right now. I think they can win 5 more. Now, is it going to be the ones that I said? I doubt it, because that's the NFL. But I think in that schedule, for many of the reasons you brought up, and a couple of those games I think are very clearly leaning in favor of the Bears. Browns for sure. I think Giants, again, given their health, we just went through all that. There's a couple right there. And then, maybe they clip the Vikings. Maybe JJ doesn't have a great day. Could they get the Eagles? They could. I don't think they're going to.
Maybe.
Could they get the Steelers? I'm back to, maybe. Again, if Aaron comes out,
100%.
yeah, if Aaron comes out and plays flat, sure, because their defense has been very beatable. Their offense has been beatable on days, but not very beatable on other days. They've been really dialed in. So I think there's 5 more wins in there sprinkled around somewhere, and that would be, again, a 9 or 10 win team.
That'd be a great season.
Probably a wild card team, maybe not. Again, NFC North, very, very competitive, but I think a season that all Bears fans can be proud of. I think Caleb, again, is going to be, again, barring injury, right around 4,000 yards passing, which has been the bugaboo number forever. He could blow right through that, right? If he accelerates in the second half of the season, which is what Goff did in his first season under Ben Johnson. The first half was very pedestrian for Goff, and the second half was quite a bit better. I can see Caleb continuing to improve throughout the second half and really sort of racing past that number and getting, 4,100, no problem. And we'll see. But I think, the Giants is the first step. You can't start looking past that very much. If you beat the Giants, you're in good stead, and you, again, roll on to the next week and see what it presents you in terms of matchup and injury and everything else on both sides, because we would love the Bears to stay perfectly healthy and get some guys back. That probably won't happen either. So
one of the questions then from Eric comes in saying, can we talk about the one trade that they did make?
Yes, we can.
Any insights into Joe
Tryon Shoyinka? Yeah, absolutely. He was a Husky, so I got to watch him a lot collegiately. I was pretty excited about his prospects. He was an ascending player. He hadn't hit his ceiling coming out of college. Some people call that raw. Some people call that traits to still develop, whatever you want to call it. He had some untapped potential, and he started to show it in Tampa Bay. He flashed it. He was not consistent. A little bit like Booker Booker is the same thing. Booker was a young, raw edge rusher with some really good tools who had already flashed in college. That was the same for Joe. Again, good physical profile in terms of athletic testing, length, everything else. So started to sort of show out for Tampa Bay, but then he got hurt and it dropped off. Tampa Bay has other edge rushers. He ends up, moving on to the Browns. He was buried on the Browns depth chart. I actually would have gone after the guy in front of him on the Browns depth chart if I was getting my choice. Alex Wright would be the guy I would have gone after. He's a little bit further along. The Bears going after Tryon Shoyinka is largely a dart throw, hoping he can regain some of that form, some of those flashes he had pre-injury in Tampa Bay. And for the price they paid, that's not a bad gamble. Like, again, if you get a semi-functional rotational pass rusher, even if he's a DPR, designated pass rusher out of that, for what they paid, that's cheap, right? And if he doesn't work out, you didn't gamble a lot, not a lot gambled, not a lot lost, not a big deal. You needed somebody else in the rotation. There are about 5 guys that I would have gone after first. I would have taken a run at Kuntz out in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
I would have taken a run at both of the guys that are still in the Jets, Jermaine Johnson and Clemens. Michael Clemens, I think Michael Clemens is a perfect fit, like physically for Dennis Allen and what he likes in his ends. He would have been a more sort of hand and glove replacement for Dio, I think. Just physically, he's big, tall, he's really long, he's closer to 300. Alex Wright, I mentioned, and there's a handful of others. But the bottom line is, I don't know if they called on those guys. They probably did. I wouldn't have been happy to see them give up a second round pick. The Bengals are being completely stupid and wouldn't come off a first round pick for Trey, which I think is just purely punishment. It's just punitive. There's no reason. He's gone at the end of the season anyways. Who's to say that Ryan Poles didn't call all those teams and they didn't come back and say, oh, you need to give us a second or you need to give us a third. If it's a rental and you don't necessarily have a good feeling you're going to re-sign that guy, that's a pretty stiff price. What they paid for Joe Tryon Shoyinka is it's a lottery ticket and not a bad one. I don't say that in a bad way. But is he going to turn the pass rush around single-handedly? He's not. Is he going to come in and give you a few good reps throughout the season and maybe grow in Dennis Allen's system and kind of regain some of his form? That's what they're hoping. That would be the best case scenario. So that's my short summary of Joe Tryon Shoyinka.
Yeah, to add a little bit of extra kind of info on what's been kind of going around, it seems like obviously there's a lot of talk on the trade deadline today. Ryan Poles spoke to the media and Ben Johnson spoke to the media, and there was different reports that went out today that Ben Johnson was actually one of the people that was saying, let's take a step back here and let's make sure that we protect our future, that we don't have to go all in right now. And one of the, I wouldn't call it rumors, it was one of the stories that came out late last night, was that the Bears were in for Jermaine Johnson, but were not willing to go to the price that the Jets wanted. The Jets wanted a second round pick. My guess is if they asked for a third, the Bears probably would have done it. But again, the Jets, they made their big moves already. They probably didn't have to do it. It was the same thing for Breece Hall. There's a lot of teams that were interested, but nobody was giving up a third round pick for him. There was teams like the Chiefs that had offered a fourth or a conditional fourth that could move up to a 3, and the Jets still rejected that. So, yeah, like at the end of the day, if you like Johnson, he's a free agent at the end of the year, so you can see if he might be one. I know there was interest in some of the guys from Seattle, but it seemed like Seattle just decided they didn't want to trade. Same thing with Bradley Chubb and for Miami. There were some of these teams that there's always smoke around certain guys, but then teams make moves and they decide not to move them. Obviously, the other Jalen Phillips got moved to the Eagles.
Yeah,
that was someone that the Bears were interested in.
I was sorry that Howie took him off the board. Yeah, that one felt. And again, like I feel like the Bears pick would have been higher, but they're maybe they were trying to do Jalen a favor. I don't know. Again, former Bear and Champ Kelly is running the GM job in Miami right now, so there's certainly familiarity there. But Jalen was one of the first guys on my list, and when he went off, I was like, oh, okay, now I'm not. I don't need you to sprint after anybody else.
he was the one player that for about a week, anyone you asked about who the Bears would have been very interested in, his name came up. And again, it's a rental, so it could have been where they asked for a third and the Bears went to see if there was a possibility that it wouldn't be a rental, that you would have an option to do it. And if him and his agent basically said no, like we're planning on going to free agency and this will be whatever, the couple of months here, a third round pick might have been too rich for the Bears. And that's just the way it is. Like, don't be surprised that if it gets into the offseason, if these are the same names of guys that you
Several of
get
them
get linked to the Bears, and they could potentially come up with one or two of them to add some depth. Because look, they're not going to be flushed with cash in the offseason, but they're going to be smart about how they do it. They would have used this time, I would say, going pretty heavy on some of these guys and getting information to kind of know where it's going to land when it gets to the offseason. So even though they didn't come away with some of those kind of bigger name guys that people were talking about, it was probably very good information gathering for them moving forward. And yeah, I'm glad. I would have been annoyed if they traded a second round pick for one of those guys, especially impending free agent. I don't think you needed to do that. So now what you do is you see, can you get something out of Joe? Like if you can do that and get a little bit of fight there, like maybe that's somebody that, again, as a depth piece you bring back and it's not costing you a lot of money. That's what you're looking for here, guys that can play on this defensive line, because realistically, your starter opposite Montez Sweat needs to come from the draft. Like that.
And should.
Has to happen. And should. So
should this year especially, because there's a lot of good pass rushers coming out this year, and they are going to have that. And I'm glad that Ben, to an extent, came in and said, let cooler heads prevail. Like, let's tamp this down. Let's not go nuts. On the flip side, you could have your second round pick, keep it and spend it on Shamar Turner. So maybe you go for a proven commodity. I mean, let's not forget that there's two, I'm just going to say it, bad picks in this last year's draft. Shamar Turner has done absolutely nothing so far. And Ruben Hippolyte, we all knew when he got selected, that was not a prudent selection. Let's put it that way. Yeah. But the one I forget about is Zay Frazier, who basically got his entire rookie year off. Boy, would it be nice to have Zay Frazier on the team right now, but they are going to have him on the team next year. He's the 5th round pick out of UTSA. He's a corner with a ton of length. I liked his sort of trajectory as he finished up at UTSA. Felt like he was starting to ascend. I really liked his prospects. I got to see him at Shrine Bowl in person. There's something there. And again, shut down really before he got started for an issue the Bears knew about before they drafted him. So I get it. But the whole go trade for a cornerback. You got cornerbacks coming back healthy. You got guys like Zay Frazier coming back into the fold who haven't even played yet. So, I can see both sides of hey, third round pick is a third round pick. That's pretty good. But, basically spent your equivalent of a third round pick on Ruben Hippolyte. I know it was a 4th, but maybe Jalen Phillips for a third round pick. Not so bad.
I will say that in terms of the corners, obviously the news story that came out today was that the Bears are bringing in Asante Samuel Jr. For a tryout next Tuesday. Now, he's going to a lot of teams. He's visiting the Carolina Panthers today. He's going to be visiting the Minnesota Vikings, the Green Bay Packers, I think the Philadelphia Eagles, and then one other team. So he has a bunch of visits lined up all the way up until next Wednesday or Thursday. So that's not going to be something that's going to happen this week. But again, that's another name to consider that might be an option. But again, you never know. He could end up just deciding to sign for somebody else. So
yep,
it's one of those that that's why I was always when it came to corners, I was happy doing something similar to what we just saw for the edge rusher. That if it doesn't cost a lot, it would make sense. But you wouldn't want to spend high capital on a corner because that when everybody comes back, they're not your premier starters, because that's going to be Kyler Gordon and Jalen Johnson. the reality is, and where I am happy with this, is that you need your premier picks this year, because there's certain positions out there that will fit with what you do. Like we mentioned it, and we'll talk about it much more in the off season, but we've both been of the opinion that you should be targeting edge rushers, especially in the upcoming draft. If the Bears were able to get away with it in the offseason, where one of these guys that did get traded this year, or in this trade deadline, like a Jalen Phillips, like even some of the other names that we mentioned, like Jermaine Johnson and stuff, if they're guys that maybe pick up one of them in free agency, and then you also draft an edge rusher, suddenly things look a lot better in terms of your pass rush, especially with Austin Booker. If he can look, he has a big role to play here on how his future is going to look for the Bears. Can he take over now and be a guy that can get sacks? End of the day, his sack where he manhandled Orlando Brown with one hand and got a sack on Joe Flacco. Again, he's only coming back from injury. If he can get himself fully healthy, see what he has, again, he can be part of this moving forward, and that's very, very interesting to me. It's to see what he can do, because I think if Dio was there, like, because they spent all the money on him, he would have been a guy that would have commanded all the snaps. Now he's not there, so you're gonna have to fix it. You'll still see some of those defensive tackles go on the outside, go on the inside, and they'll be moving quite a lot of these guys. So it's not your stereotypical like 2 DNs and 2 defensive tackles. You're going to see a lot of movement across that defensive line, and boy do they need it, because they need to create more pressure and they need to keep people fresh. And right now it seems like the only way they're going to be able to do that is make sure that they blitz but keep the guys on the D-line fresh, so that they have a little bit of an advantage on the guys they're going up against. But something needs to change. Can't have performances like we had last week. But yeah, I don't think it was a bad trade deadline by any means, because you didn't give up crazy capital for someone who didn't deserve it, but also it's not really going to move the needle too much for the Bears.
No, it's a guy. They needed a guy in the rotation. He has some upside. Again, has to hit some green lights to get there, but it's not hopeless. It's not bringing in just a body that has already peaked and, isn't going to be up there, or is incredibly veteran and, will only be with the team for the next, 8 games. So I like the approach overall. I know it was disappointing to some folks who just wanted more splash, kind of like, free agency. You just do something, right?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes not doing anything is prudent, and I think it is for the Bears in this case. And there's a lot of scenarios, as you mentioned, where it plays out. Maybe they pick up somebody in free agency. Maybe somebody, ascends and re-signs with them. I believe Booker can be a better player than he is right now. That was the whole pun intended book on him coming out, was that he was young and developing. He had a lot of tools. He was not a finished product. It was going to take a while. We saw some flashes last year. We're seeing some more flashes this year. That's not a guy you give up on, a guy that you paid a low price for draft capital wise, who is showing flashes and is young and still developing. Those aren't guys you pitch to the curb. Those are guys you give more opportunities. And like you said, he's going to get him down the stretch here. So it'll be pretty cool. Any other questions you want to answer before we get out of here? Because we are about to wrap up, but I want to thank everybody before we go rushing off that for joining us again. Hope you like the live stream format. We will endeavor to bring you Northwatch every week in this format. The guys are pretty excited about being able to do it this way. And I know you're all excited about it being included. We are as well. And, thanks for the super chat earlier, Paul. That was tremendous. And every little bit helps. Showing up, telling your friends that this is, one of the Bears places you get your news, and you like the way that, we address the team and pick it apart. Feel free to do that. That's worth as much to us as anything else. So.
Yeah, absolutely. We always love you guys when getting to do these lives and reading some of your comments, some of the comments on the videos in general, the engagement. We have a good time hanging out, and it's going to be really good. One of the questions, I guess, before we go, and probably wraps up this quite well, Neil Omar says, do you feel like this is a must-win game if the Bears have serious wild card / playoff aspirations?
I think probably just because of the schedule that we went through, this is one of the winnable games. And as a good or team that is moving towards being good, right? If you're going to be a good team in the NFL, you have to win the games you're supposed to. And then you have to win a few of the games you're not supposed to. And that is the formula to get you into the playoffs and make you dangerous. You cannot be dropping games that you should win. And if you are looking at the rest of this schedule, this is as winnable a game outside of the Browns game as there is on the rest of your schedule. If you're looking at the entire back half of your schedule, the Giants and the Browns are the two games that stand out right now, again, outside of, a starting quarterback being injured or something else, that you can look at this schedule and go, yeah, you got better than average chance to take that. If you're going to be where you want to be as a team, if you're going to be contending for your division every year, getting that seed that gets you the automatic playoff berth, which is what your goal should be, you can't drop games that you quote unquote should win. It doesn't add up. They come back to bite you. I don't care if they're in week 1 or week 10 or week 18. Like, you need to continue to check those off. And that's what good teams do. They don't look past games. They don't fall for trap games. They just win the ones they should. And then they tip over a couple people along the way that maybe they quote unquote shouldn't have. So if from that standpoint, yes, in terms of the Bears development as a team that's learning to win, yes, it feels like they have to win this one because they should win this one.
Mm-hmm. Before we finish up here, I've seen a stat that I found very interesting in terms of Kyle Monangai. Where do you think he ranks in amongst rookie rushing leaders through 9 weeks of the season?
Oh, in terms of yardage?
Mm-hmm.
Rookie rushing leaders. I'm trying to think about all the just pure rookies. Quinshawn's fallen off a little bit in the last couple of weeks. So 4th? I don't know. I'm just guessing. 4th?
Very close. He's 5th. So
okay.
Ashton Genty has 487 rushing yards. Quinshawn Judkins has 486. 3 is Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt with 440.
Bill. Yep.
Yeah. Number 4 is Cam Scadaboo with 410.
Oh, Cam. Okay. And he didn't quite catch Cam. All right.
Yeah. And then you have Kyle Monangai with 362. So he should get into probably the top 4, maybe top 3, because I know Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt has not had a good couple of weeks, but again, the talent is there for him to where he would be able to turn it around. But it just goes to show he's only had like 1 start, and again, you get the right piece for the offense and they can be productive, and yeah, it's going to be exciting. I hope, it goes back to, and this is my kind of final point here, was we heard before the last game that Ben Johnson kind of saying that they have to kind of save DeAndre Swift from himself in terms of injuries. You can see why DeAndre Swift did not want to come out because this kid has come in, taken this team by storm. You saw the reaction of guys to Kyle Monangai after the game. He is a very well-liked player in that locker room, and guys like that perform well but also are good teammates, those are the type of guys you want in your locker room. And hopefully he gets to have another very good game and gets his touchdown, because I felt he deserved it last week.
I think Monangai is going to get a touchdown, whether it's just coming in short yardage and relief or finishing off a long drive that he's been the driver of. But Britton Brown as well, a back that I like coming out, not as a high round pick. I would have said 5th, 6th round type of back coming out of college, but a heavier handed back. And he had 7.4 per. He had 5 rushes. Mm-hmm. Everybody talks about the touchdown, but when he ran, he also ran well behind that line. And we have not seen that 2nd or 3rd back, even when it was Monangai, perform that well. And again, sometimes just when you slot the right guy into the primary slot, everybody else drops in behind them into their more proper role. We see it with receiving cores all the time. It happens with rushing rooms too. And Britton Brown looked like a very capable number 2. So it's okay moving forward to just say, hey, we're going to bring Swift in for the things that he is very good at, for the outside runs in space. We don't care if it's predictable. We're going to be, good enough in blocking at that point that we can just line up and say, what we're going to do, but we're just going to out execute you. And Swift can still rip off big chunks in the outside passing game, short passing game, and in outside runs. But when you just need to either have some mystery about what it is you're going to do, or you're running between the tackles, you need one of those two guys in there. You need Monagai or Britton Brown in there, because they have proved in 1 week, look, we're just better at this, and the offense is better because of us.
Yeah, and to go on that is based on next gen stats. Bears running back Monagai had 58 rushing yards over expectation in week 9.
Yes.
DeAndre Swift has 41 yards over expectation all season.
For the season, that's correct. And that's the difference we've been talking about the entire year, which is it's not the offensive line. The offensive line is blocking it up. He's not taking advantage of the opportunity there in front of him. Or if he is, he's taking advantage, the minimum amount of advantage that is presented to him. Like if it's blocked for 2, he's getting 2. He's not getting 2.5. He's not getting 3. He's not getting 4. He's getting 2. And that's how you play basically half a season and come up with only 41 yards over expected. That means you're barely taking advantage of what's given to you and never tipping that to the other side and going, holy cow, you got way more than we expected you to. And most backs will do that a few times a game, and that adds up. Swift almost never does, especially when he's focusing on inside runs, which, look, an offense has to be able to run inside and outside to be effective. You can't run one or the other and expect defenses not to load up and stop it. So very, very different team with this running back and offensive line combination. Hope we get to continue to see that going forward, because it was way more fun, Bears fans. Like, it was just, the team was way more fun to watch when they could rip off runs kind of at will. And that's what Ben wants. That's the basis of his offense. So we hope, much like the Bears, that we continue to improve every week. If we don't, let us know in the comments. Let us know what you want more of, less of, what you want in terms of frequency. I think we'll probably stay with the live stream format. Feels like it's working pretty well. And we get to have the interaction with all you, which we really appreciate in real time. So thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for joining us today, giving us your time, giving us your vote by attention. We deeply appreciate it in a crowded media market. And we will see you next week.